don't have to go anywhere with this, but it occurs to me that perhaps Netanyahu embodies that unconscious prejudice we white people have in the way that he dealt with the president.
Yes, sir. Well, among many others. I mean, I stuck to the American terrain pretty much because there's so much that we have to get right here that we have to be honest about. But the relationship between between Netanyahu and Obama was pretty tense and may have been driven by as much, unconscious racial difference. It doesn't even have to be conscious animus, but the condescension with which he treated Obama at certain points and the presumptuousness certainly has to be called out. And doing the end run, the attempt to go around Obama and then to bring him to Congress. I mean, the disrespect is pretty profound. And for him to, even when other Israeli voices tried to argue against and prevail against Netanyahu's decision to come on and speak to that joint meeting of Congress, he still went on nonetheless. It was a pretty counterproductive move ultimately, I think, on his part, but also embodies many of the tropes and symbols of the disrespect that we talked about. So I think you're right in that regard.
In your discussion of the racial profiling of the president and all the problems that gave him, you made your strongest example, I thought, the resistance of the Congress to raise the national debt limit. Mm-hmm. You felt that was in large part due to racial reasons. I just strongly disagree with that. I wonder what evidence you have for that. I look at a national debt approaching somewhere around 19 trillion now. I also wondered why the president didn't mention anything about the national debt in his State of the Union speech. Right. You mentioned things he didn't mention.
Right.
That would seem to me something that should have been on his plate. My view is that the Congress did a very responsible thing to resist and look at any other avenues to deal with that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, the evidence I have, when I make the claim is that, first of all, no other president, and I think I said this when I presented, if I didn't, let me repeat it. No other president, none, no other white president, if I have to say it that way, right? No other president, but they've all been white before him. Now, you could say it's ideology. Well, there have been people who are far more aggressive in terms of the distribution of wealth, in terms of the economy and the debt, right? George Bush certainly was out of control, some would argue, even from an objective viewpoint, right? They wanted to put him on the Democratic side. The kind of spending he was doing, bruh, you must be a Democrat, for real. The swelling of the debt and so on. But why is it that under George Bush, the debt ceiling was not automatically raised? So I'm asking white people to be honest. I'm asking white Americans to say, if you say there's no evidence, I didn't say they didn't call him the N-word, they didn't get up and make it. That's the effectiveness. Eduardo Bonilla from Duke University talks about racism without racists, right? That's the ingenuity of white supremacy. It's a machinery that's self-perpetuating. So I'm saying if no other president in history has had this done to him or her, Reagan, Carter, on either side of the aisle, why is it that the concern has been so combustible under Obama that it led to an unprecedented act on the part of Congress? I, sir, would suggest to you, please at least take seriously the fact that unconscious racism or resistance or racialization, they're not the same, at least played a role in the kind of pitched resistance to Obama that we've seen. Now, I don't extricate that from the other stuff. I'm putting that in league with so many other evidences and instances of political figures who've been disrespectful to Obama. Forget the average citizen, not political, the reporter from Daily, what's the conservative Caller?
The Daily Caller.
Right. Stood on the White House lawn and interrupted the president while he's speaking. Things that many maybe white brothers and sisters don't see, like racial profiling when you go to the store and you come in and 3 other white people come in behind you and they treat them first. You go, now it could be because that person's blind, they didn't see, they don't see well there. But it happens so repeatedly to African American people that many white people are unconscious of, that we have to point these things out as potential flags of a kind of animus that dare not speak its name. I think in that regard, I would think that that debt ceiling debacle is one instance of many others that together suggest to me that there's plenty of racial passion out there that is arrayed against the president.
Wow, Professor Dyson, awesome. And
Thank you, Doc.
welcome back. You were here a couple of years ago during
Yes, sir.
MLK celebration. And
Yes, sir.
I can say, honestly, this is the most fascinating interview that I've ever heard, particularly here in the Miller Center. And we had Eric Holder here last year as well. So a lot of takeaways. The question I have for you is, with your relationship with President Obama, do you sense that he has strong mentor-mentee relationships with someone African American that he has hopes to bring along, whether it's politically or otherwise? You know, we had Eric Holder here, and I don't suspect it would be Eric Holder, but if you know some folks that you know, President Obama has been bringing along, would you share that with us?
Yes, sir. No, it's a great question. I'm not privy to that degree of what might be occurring, although when I look around, I mean, people who are in his administration that he's mentored, who've run for office, Michael Blake, an assemblyman up in New York, Will Juwato, who's now running for Congress in Maryland, I think it is, Maryland and Virginia. So, you know, you have figures like that, Patrick, what's the United States ambassador to South Africa? I'm blanking. It's my man too. He's gonna slap me if I don't. Somebody look that up right quick. Google that. Patrick. I'm losing his last name. So when you think about people like that, who the president may be, and unbeknownst to us, may be culling through, if you will, the fill and looking at people who catch his eye and lending his support to others who have emerged, but who are yet to emerge nationally. I suspect there will be a lot more time for that when he's out of office and he making a whole bunch of money and a contribution to our society through his private endeavors. I suspect he'll be offering an incredible amount of advice and encouraging young people to get into the fray.
What's your view, though, like on Cory Booker or Mayor Kasim Reed of Atlanta, who's early on seemed to have a big relationship with the White House, and then that seemed to chill out a little bit.
Yeah.
They showed up with Republicans too often, I think.
You talking about Reed or
Kasim.
Cory?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but
Yeah,
both
yeah.
really.
Yeah, well, yeah. Right. Yeah, no, they're like, you know, they're more new Democrats in the old Bill Clinton mode. Some have argued Hillary Clinton, but I think Hillary's a little bit more complicated right now. But no, they're comers. They're extremely talented, both of them. You know, Booker's the only, you know, black Democrat in the Senate right now. I think Tim Scott is on the other side of the ledger. And, you know, it's enormously talented, concerned about prison reform. I was on a panel with Booker and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Bradley at last year's NBA All-Star Weekend. And he's a very impressive young man. And so is, you know, Kasim Reed, Howard University graduate, now mayor of Atlanta, probably has his sights set on national office. Both of them are moderate Democrats. Both of them can play with the other side in the sandbox of life. They're willing to share their toys. The question, of course, will be to what degree will that have a political payoff? Cory Booker learned, as has Reed, that you've got to be concerned about the broader American landscape, to be Catholic, small c, in terms of your vision, looking out universally to see what issues affect Americans, along with black and other constituencies. So I think both of them have tremendous purchase in the national scene.
Michael, welcome back to UVA.
Hey, how you doing, Professor?
Fine, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I would like, and thanks for a really stimulating exchange. I'd like for you to consider adding one other item of urgency to your list of pieces of advice to the incoming president,
Okay.
along with police brutality, along with the prison industrial complex.
Right.
We're at a critical moment in the history of U.S. higher education. And I wonder if you might speak to the urgency of higher education admissions, affordability, et cetera, especially as regards racial questions
Yes, ma'am.
and the impending matter before the court.
Right, from one of the most famous professors in America and one of the greatest critics that we've ever produced. Yeah, that's a great point. And on this score, Obama, especially in relationship to historically black colleges and universities, hasn't had the greatest track record. Now people will say, well, wait a minute, Obama gave a bunch of money to historically black colleges and universities. But as was proved the other day, when he made a statement that, hey, some of these colleges are going to do well, that's great, but some of them are loaded with debt, and as a result of that, your degree is not going to really be worth what it is. And you know, black people who went to black colleges are going like, yo, stop already with the kind of signifying that reproduces the pathology of demonizing these institutions from which still the majority of black people who go on to get PhDs come from those ranks and who are educated in America. I started at Knoxville College myself. All three of my children have graduated from historically black colleges and universities, Morehouse, Spelman, and Hampton, where in this state I'll have the opportunity to deliver the commencement address this year. Thank you, Dr. Harvey. So it is important to say that he's not been as sensitive to the interests specifically of these colleges. And then more broadly, in terms of higher education, and you're absolutely right, affordability is critical. I mean, when Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders are trying to challenge each other about who can make college the freest, that's a good thing in America, right? To figure out to what degree are we saying to young people that you will leverage your future. You got to borrow all this money. I remember to be educated. I remember when I graduated eons ago, 1985, I got into Princeton. I had a full ride at Princeton, but I owed $7,500 to the school I was then attending, right? So they refused to give me my diploma. Now, thank God Princeton accepted me. I hope I ain't out in Princeton like this. Accepted me they'd already accepted me, but I didn't have to show my final diploma. They had already had my transcripts and the like. So the thing is that because I couldn't afford to pay that bill off, my diploma was withheld. Man, come to think of it, did I ever get it? So, oh my God, I may not be a college graduate, no. So, so the thing is that working class people, community colleges, I was just at a community college last week in Seattle, outside of Seattle, Edmonds Community College. I started as well at Wayne County Community College. These institutions educate a bunch of millions of people. So we got to find the gentleman was talking earlier about the debt. One of the things that we have to deal with in terms of individual citizens collectively in certain groups who are bearing that burden is what they do with higher education in terms of how they get educated. And if there's a correlation between the education you get and the jobs you get, that's extremely important. Although, interestingly enough, a new study came out maybe 3 months ago that suggested there wasn't as ironclad a relationship between the education you receive for African American people and the money you receive. Again, that is reinforcing the fact that even when black people play by the rules, it doesn't close the gulf in terms of the economic disparities that have prevailed in this country. Having said that, I think you're absolutely right in terms of higher education, in terms of affordability, in terms of accessibility, and in terms of arguments over, let's be honest here, about affirmative action, mostly at places like the University of Virginia, a public Ivy, a school. Is this public? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Kinda.
Yes, right. Yeah. Thomas Jefferson. So, they should have the Sally Hemings chair. I'm sure they have that coming. So
You're sitting in it.
I'm sitting in it right here. That's the only chair she got. The only chair she got, right? Should be endowed, let me put it that way. So, but the point is that when only these elite institutions like Georgetown, where I teach, and Virginia, and places where we both taught, are the arguments about affirmative action deeply involved. Because for the vast majority of Americans outside the top 25, top 50, those kind of concerns don't come into play. So people are really arguing about their own legacy of closed admission that has been handed on from one generation of predominantly white Americans to the other without the interruption of gender or class or race at that level. So I would like to talk about affordability. I would like the next president to deal with these questions of accessibility, but also in that sense to have some courage and bravery on this affirmative action front as well. But that's a great point. I'm putting it down right here.
I don't have a problem with Obama. I have a problem with him being a first black, which first blacks in many cases bear the brunt of all kinds of nonsense. For instance, the first black Reconstruction legislators, they had a tough time. They weren't even accepted in Washington by their own black folk. Then you have the first black president of Maytag in Newcomb, Iowa. They almost ran him and his family out of town. So when you're the first black, I think Obama did great. I think that we failed in not coming to his support more often to help him understand he doesn't have to be the black president to help black folk.
He has to be what to help black folk? What does he have to, you want to let her have the mic. So what does he have to be in order to help black folk?
Black. But when you're in a position like that, he didn't run on being the black president. He ran for change, and he ran for everybody.
Right.
Some of the black Reconstruction legislators had the same problem. They did not want to be representative of blacks only. Some represented the area that they came from, poor whites or whatever. But they didn't get horsewhipped like Obama did.
Sure. But see, you said something very important there. You said black only. To say, when you say you represent everybody, does that include black people? Yeah. Oh, so if it includes black people, can we talk about black people's interest then as part of everybody?
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Me and you on the same page.
We should have been there behind him to help him.
Well, how?
8 years and everybody is saying he had a problem.
Well, wait a minute. What do you mean by we should have been there? Tell me what that looks like.
When he came out, for instance, I don't know whatever the problem was, let's say education.
Right.
He should have been there, city council, state legislatures, all the way up saying we need to get this done. You can't keep hiding it.
Right. Well, see, you know, with the argument, he mentioned Frederick Harris. Doug Blackmon mentioned Frederick Harris. Frederick Harris's book, The Price of the Ticket, says Obama comes from a tradition. The very tradition you're talking about, he ignored. The very traditions of local black political power, black political authority, and the like, he ignored. So it's not simply that as the first black president, he couldn't just do stuff for black people. Look, he said that argument to me. I'm like, for real, that's not a sophisticated argument, that I'm not just the president of black America. You didn't say to gay people, I'm not just a gay president. I'm not just a lesbian president. I'm the president of all Americans, but I deal with an issue. If you got a hand here, you got a thumb that's jacked up, all right? And then you say, well, the other four fingers are cool. Let me deal with the thumb because the thumb is hurting more. You don't go, why do you have thumbitis? Why do you have thumb ideology? You know, the pointer wants some love and the pinky finger too. But the pointer and the pinky are doing great right now. It's the thumb that's jacked up. And if you help the thumb, oh my God, you're helping the thumb. No, I'm helping the hand. The thumb is part of the hand. And if you ain't got a thumb, you can't shoot. Ask Steph Curry. You can't do it. So this business of I'm helping blacks, and therefore if I help blacks, see, Obama had it wrong. Obama thought if I help, and I love him, Obama thought if I help everybody else, I'll help black people out. No. If you help black people, you help everybody. Why? Because in the civil rights movement, when the civil rights bill got passed, they added stuff about women up in there. That was real sneaky too. And the dude who did it was a Republican thinking he was going to sink the bill because ain't nobody going to support women.
It's a crazy idea.
Over the right with black, and it passed. Oh my God, I done hooked up 2 of them. I done hooked up women and African Americans as a group. Damn.
And the very first language that makes gives any opening in American law to legal rights for gay couples is also in the Civil Rights Act of '64.
I'm just
so it
saying,
opens that door as well.
You hook up us, you hook up everybody. Yeah. And I think Obama didn't get that message. Even William Julius Wilson, the great sociologist at Harvard, who said strategic deracialization, basically, that you don't do it frontward. By frontward movement, but even Wilson changed his mind. He said it's got to be targeted. You got to target this. Why wouldn't you? When you go in anything else you want to target, we want to be correct on everything except politics. Let's not be politically correct. Okay, let's be politically incorrect. You don't want to be incorrect when balancing your books. at the end of the month, get a wrong check from University of Virginia if you work for University of Virginia. Oh, why are you so obsessed with correctness? That you get the correct pay. Yeah, okay. So it seems to me that when it comes to Obama, black folk were willing to make all kind of excuses for him they ain't made for nobody else. If I was a white president, I'd be going like, damn, can I get that? Can Ronald Reagan retroactively? Well, now there you go again. Ronald Reagan, when black people didn't go, hey, stop pressing him. He's only a president. He can't do everything. Why didn't we make that argument for every other president? LBJ, now I know why, because I wrote a piece in the New Republic basically recently that said that Hillary Clinton, if she elected, could do more for black people than Barack Obama. Not because she's smarter or better, but because she's white and has a certain kind of privilege to be able to publicly support interests of African American people without being called, oh, you're hooking up your own people. And by the way, because of Obama's struggles, I think Hillary has been more explicit about helping women than Obama could be about helping black people, because it's that radioactive, the issue of race in this country. So I think that we were there, black people were there, Obama ignored a lot of that. I didn't go into a lot of, Obama ignored a lot of stuff that black people had done, distanced himself. He was brilliant about that. At the Congressional Black Caucus, when he was just a senator, he didn't attend many of those meetings. He didn't want to be associated with them. Don't want that baggage. Got to be distant from them. How many days did it take for him to meet with the Congressional Black Caucus if a white president had done that? When Obama went to visit the world, when he first got elected, right? He went to Cairo. I'm so sorry. Remember the Republicans got mad? The apology tour. He's apologizing on foreign soil for what America did. He went to Cairo and said, we're not at war with Islam, and we apologize for what we have done in this world. Republicans were ballistic. He went to Turkey, same thing. Got to Africa? I'm not having it. He says, stop talking about colonialism. What? Stop speaking to us. He said, it's bad governance, not good governance. It is your problems. He said, the problems of Africa are made by Africans themselves. The same thing he did at Morehouse, he did in Africa. Get the connection? These are black people. And Obama has to be seen. Toni Morrison said, on the backs of blacks, America has been created. What's one of the best ways to show white folk that you're going to be distant and not beholden to black interests? Be hard on black people. He went to the black church. That's why Jesse Jackson wanted to give him a severed package. But he wasn't working for him, so it's different. And it was wrong and vicious what Jesse Jackson said, but Jesse Jackson said he's talking down to us in the Father's Day speech. Would he call white men fools? He went to a church and said, any fool can make a baby. Try that at the local ashram or the synagogue or the white United Methodist Church. It ain't gonna follow. Now you would say to me immediately, Michael, my son, how naive are you? People talk to their own people differently. Jews speak to Jews, Poles speak to Poles, Italians speak to Italians, women speak to women in ways that no other. I absolutely agree, but here's the problem. But they're also responsible for representing those groups as well. Obama loved to quote Chris Rock, where Chris Rock would go, black people always want to get credit for something they should do and then think that they deserve credit for doing stuff they're supposed to do. And he gave an example, like, I take care of my kids. He said, fool, you're supposed to take care of your kids, right? So Obama quotes that part, but not the other part. When Chris Rock goes, and white people use the backs of the old black men as the cabs without having to hail it, and with the ways in which white supremacy operated. Obama can't afford to tell that truth. So when you tell only one side of the story, it makes it look as if black people have more moral needs to address their pathologies than do white brothers and sisters. We know he can't speak about the broader white issue. And if you can't do that, then stop doing it for African American people in public, because nowhere you go is private. Any black church you speak to will be echoed around the world and amplified. Obama, I think, was a bit more cynical and knew that, manipulated that rhetoric for his advance. Why? Because he had just had a problem with Jeremiah Wright. I ain't going to no black church talking nothing about white people. I'm going to be on Negroes today. And I get that as a strategy. But look at the cost of that. So when you say we should have had his back, black people have had his back. Black people live in a zone where tough love is seen as love, where false charges against our own culture are seen as a kind of concern about us. And this is why I didn't want to say much on camera with the Bill Cosby thing. But look what we did with Bill Cosby. Gave him a pass. I wrote a book about Bill Cosby 10 years ago. Black people were, look, I had to have bodyguards when I went on book tour in LA. I said, over Jell-O pudding pop? You gonna attack me over Bill? Because I was saying, and I did have a 3 or 4 pages about Miss Constant, right? I was early on that. But what I talked about was the way in which he attacked black women. He said, pretty soon you're gonna have a DNA card in the ghetto to determine if you're making love to your grandma. She has a baby, then that baby has a baby when she turns 13. And he says, she's 13 when she had the baby. You do the math, 26 years old? Now, if a white man had said that, we would run him out of town. A DNA card, this eugenicist kind of language. He says, you name your kids Shaliqua, Taliqua, and Muhammad and all that crap, and they're all in jail. I mean, just the vicious insult. But black people said, oh my God, it's about time he speaks love to us. Cornel West, my good friend, was defending Bill Cosby. Now you're a big defender of poor black people? You said Bill Cosby as a black elite deserved the right because he had given so much money to black institutions and had earned his right to falsely accuse poor black people of all manner of evil and pathology. But nihilism is in bed with that kind of culture of poverty argument that West put forward, and I disagreed with him when he put it out. So my point is this, is that black people gave Obama more than a chance, gave him a running chance, stood by him regardless, and he should be grateful to them in serious ways as a political constituency, especially when he kept them at arm's length in so many ways. And I think, and I narrate that in the book, so after you read it, you know, I'd be interested to see what you think about it.
I think we should come down to the Center for Politics and finish this conversation. In the meantime, may I have your autograph?
And as you sign that, Brother Dyson, I hope that you never decide to take me apart the way you can take people apart. But I think we have to stop right there. We've reached the witching hour. But you could probably catch him for a minute on the way out. But thank you very much. It was really terrific.